It's like each set of compost is like a neighborhood. So we're mixing it all in from Detroit. So it's kind of special having that compost. It's like Detroit's own compost from our own leaves, our own families, and our own backyard. So that's what good dirt is to me, a culmination of neighborhoods and everything else.
You're listening to the Good Dirt Podcast. This is a place where we dig into the nitty-gritty of sustainable living through food, fashion, and lifestyle.
And we're your hosts, Mary and Emma Kingsley, the mother and daughter founder team of Lady Farmer. We're sowing seeds of slow living through our community platform, events, and online marketplace.
We started this podcast as a means to share the wealth of information and quality conversations that we're having in our world as we dream up and deliver ways for each of us to live into the new paradigm, one that is regenerative, balanced, and whole.
We want to put the microphone in front of the voices that need to be heard the most right now. The farmers, the dreamers, the designers, and the doers.
So come cultivate a better world with us. We're so glad you're here. Now, let's dig in.
Hi everyone, Mary here. So, the trees are suddenly bare and the garden is asleep. It's that time of year when, just a few years ago, I would have been out busily clearing debris and brush out of the garden and getting things all tidied up for winter. But that was before I realized how all the dried stalks, the flower heads, sticks, and brush, all of that create a safe haven and a food source for the wildlife. And the leaves on the ground cover the earth, not only creating habitat for numerous life forms, but enriching the soil. What might look like something of a mess is actually a winter haven for so many native bees, butterflies, birds, insects, and millions of microorganisms that are doing their part in regenerating the landscape. The other day, I looked out on the stand of dried purple coneflower stalks just outside of my kitchen window to see a couple of cardinals happily enjoying a breakfast of the prickly little seed heads, and it gave me such a jolt of joy. So for all of you gardeners out there, you don't have to be in too much of a hurry to clean up your yard. Just pause a bit. Give it a little time. Maybe wait till spring. But there does come a time when stuff has to be removed. And even in the spring, when I do clean up, I'll have quite a bit of yard debris to haul down back and throw it on a big old pile we have back there that we just let break down over time. Having said this, I realize that having a place to put all of it and leave it for years is one thing. But when you zoom out and think about more urban areas especially, the removal of yard and tree debris is a constant necessity. After a storm, for instance, when branches have fallen in the middle of a property or across roads, or when a tree has to be trimmed or removed for some reason, many municipalities have some sort of service where collected debris can be picked up and hauled off. But have you ever thought much about where it goes? Well, as we talked about in this episode, unless there is a local service to recycle it for further use, it goes into the landfill as waste. And no, it doesn't break down there in the way it needs to benefit the soil. Trees in landfills don't make good dirt. Our guests today are Brooke and Casey Oberg of Detroit Mulch. Casey and Brooke founded Detroit Mulch with the mission of recycling the trees of Detroit as sustainably and efficiently as possible so that they don't have to go into the landfill. It turns out that removing trees is an important aspect of land management, more so than I think many of us ever think about. And you'll hear today how, in taking that a step further to create mulch and compost, Brooke and Casey are helping to bring not only a valuable product and service to their community that helps replenish the soil, but they are bringing circularity into their local economy as well. It was a delight talking with these two about their commitment and passion for this project. And as usual, we learned some things we didn't know. So here we are with Brooke and Casey of Detroit Mulch.
I'm Casey, and this is Brooke. We started Detroit Mulch in 2019. We work with different municipalities as well as tree companies. They cut the trees and bring them to us.
We grind the trees into mulch to be sold or donated within the city. We also sell outside of the city.
Casey, you had a farming background. Tell us a little bit about that. And then, Brooke, we want to hear about what brought you to this field.
I came from a farming background. After we got married, I had to figure out how can I farm in the city? It was kind of how it started. In order to land clear to be able to farm this land, there's a lot of trees that were in the way. If you've ever been to Detroit, there's a lot of vacancy. The process was to land clear these trees and then farm them. And then it was like, well, what do we do with all these trees? We started figuring out ways that we can sustainably reuse these trees.
So I handle all of the business side, all of the computer work, and manage the girls up front. He handles the operations, loaders, nitty gritty on the grounds. Together we make a good team.
I grew up in northern Minnesota, and we grew corn, soybeans, sugar beet, potatoes, and I just loved everything about farming, the smells, the different types of food that we could grow, how to do it better each year. If I could have stayed farming in Minnesota, I would have done it, but we had to improvise and keep the wife happy.
Did you move? Tell us a little bit about your journey.
Well, yes. When we first were married, we moved to the farm area, and we lived there for about a year and a half. And there were parts of it we totally loved. But I have a lot of family here that I missed, and so we moved back to Michigan. But Casey wanted to still be his farm boy self, which I love here in a city environment.
What situation are you in Detroit now? Is it just a city lot?
You're in the middle of the city.
17 acres in the middle of the city.
Really?
It used to be houses. They demoed the houses before we got there. So now it's just a blank piece of ground in the middle of the city.
When you're standing there, it doesn't feel like the city. It feels like you're somewhere else.
How long have you been on these 17 acres? Is this where you live? Is your house on this 17 acres? And how long have you been there?
Our house is about 20 minutes away from mulch yard. And we've been there about 2.5 years.
So the 17 acres is where you collect mulch to deliver with itself.
It's where we collect the trees. It's where the grinders are. It's where we give new life to these Detroit trees and transform them from a tree to the mulch. We do the same with yard waste. So that's where we do it.
We love mulch at Lady Farmer. When my mom moved to her hobby farm, it had been horse pastures for I don't know how many decades. And my mom wanted to plant this big garden, and you can talk more about it, Mom.
So yes, we bought this little place, 7 acres. As Emma said, it was mostly just sort of old horse pastures, mostly some wooded areas. But there were a couple old horses living back there, and they would, come up to the back gate, and there's tons of room for them. So I reclaimed some of that land by bringing in mulch. I was inspired by a documentary about a man named Paul Gauchi called Back to Eden. He talked about taking land, covering it with a heavy layer of mulch, and letting it decompose over years. And it was very inspiring. He grew all these things. He grew all this food, fruit trees. I thought it was remarkable. So I decided I would do that here. And I learned that local tree companies would bring mulch for free and dump it, and then you could move it around wherever you wanted. And they did as many loads as you wanted. So that's what I did. But I always wondered if any of the trees had been sprayed, if there was any kind of disease or fungus or whatever happening in those trees, if that was a problem. And you all are the perfect people to ask this question. Too late now. I already did this. It's been, many years ago by now. But I always wondered if that was a problem for my garden. I don't think there is any problem with the mulches in diseases or anything, but the chemicals you can't tell about. And I wondered, well, what if they cut it down on roadsides where they had sprayed for mosquitoes or whatever? They don't tell you where this stuff comes from. So I don't know. Does it matter? If things have been sprayed, does it eventually go away? What can you tell me about that? I'm curious.
Yeah, we run it through a process. We grind it, put it in a pile, and we'll watch the temperature go right around 180 degrees, which would kill any disease that would possibly been in that tree. Then we turn the pile, then we'll cool it back down, and we'll do this process 2 to 3 times, depending on the weather, and we'll either color it, screen it to make different types of products, just different size particles. And we dye it with a carbon-based material, which is a natural, carbon is natural. So it's all going right back into whether you have a colored or natural, it's very beneficial to the soil.
Yeah, there are nice sites like Chip Drop and other sites where a tree company or an electrical company that has people cutting down trees, they can dump their chip at a property at no cost. They just dump it, and that works out great. What we offer is a small charge because we then have to process it. And so in the process, like Casey mentioned, it kills the disease, and it just kind of makes sure that what we're donating or selling is higher quality product, and that takes time. There's a difference between when you buy it from a mulch company versus when you just get the chips. But it sounds like, though, Mary, you had the chips naturally decomposing and fermenting because they were in a pile. They might have reached a temperature and some disease was killed naturally.
Yeah, they do. They put it in the pile, and it can be weeks or months until we spread it. I had enough mulch, and I don't need as much now, but I do have to replace it. What about the chemicals? I'm worried about that.
We haven't found any issues with it. As far as the studies that we've done, we haven't noticed anything that has came back to us. There's so many different chemicals out there. It's hard to know where it came from. If it came from your mulch or if somebody sprayed next to your door.
People underestimate how hot a pile of wood can get just sitting. It can get really, really hot. So in that fermentation process, there is a lot that will die from the heat inside.
Most chemicals are very concentrated. And when you think about doing mulch and you're grinding it, which is diversifying the chemicals, then piling it up, diversifying it more. Even if one tree had a chemical base on it, when it gets spread, minimized, you would never be able to, it wouldn't have any effect on a plant line.
Yeah, because even the wood chips that you're referring to, I think when he says diversify, he means like it separates it, because even the wood chips that you're referring to, we grind those one more time. So if it's a chunk that's 5 or 3 inches, it may be half of that by the time it goes our process.
Yeah, that would be a real advantage to your service, I think, rather than just having the tree company. But of course, it's free, so beggars can't be choosers. I didn't even know where to get mulch otherwise. The funny thing is, I did it in stages. Part 2 of the project must have been busy season for them because they had so much. I called them and said I could use several loads, and they just kept coming several times a day. I ended up with so much. The area was a couple of 1,000 square feet, I think. It was a big space. And I ended up having something like 18 inches of mulch. So it was a long time before I could plant anything because the dirt was so far down.
Yeah.
But now, as Emma explained, it's beautiful. And when you walk on it, it feels like you're walking on a pillow.
And that's where the benefit comes in from mulching and composting is the aeration of the soil. When you have soft, spongy soil, think about how easy it is for the roots to get down. It's like a sponge. so it retains the moisture. And when you can retain moisture, you never want to water your plant a whole bunch where it floods it out because it puts stress on that plant. If you don't water the plant enough, it puts stress on the plant. So when you have that soil, that compost, spongy feel of the soil, it creates such a good environment for your plant to grow with strong roots, which will eventually be able to produce a lot of fruits, vegetables, whatever you choose.
I'm interested, you got started in 2019. Do you have any cool stories about projects you've been a part of? What you're doing is kind of like a tree recycling program in a city like Detroit. I know there's a lot of cool stuff going on there with creative revitalization and stuff like that. So I'm wondering if you have any, stories about cool places your mulch has gone to, or interesting things that's helped grow, or anything where you're driving around and you're like, hey, that's our mulch, or anything about where your trees come from.
Yeah, well, an exciting one for me is a couple years ago, Detroit created a D3 project for trees that are diseased, destroyed, or damaged. Homeowners or businesses can submit an application for the tree to be cut down. And so, if approved, the city will send a contractor there to get the tree. And so, all of these trees that after a storm or just maybe the tree grew into a power line, they had to cut it down, anything where it may have been an eyesore before, or if it's in an empty lot and it's just a ton of trees there, they're all being cleaned up and they're brought to us and we give those trees new life for the mulch. That's super exciting because it's just adding to our community in more ways. Most vendors are based in Detroit, stimulating the jobs. It's doing all of the things. So that would be my exciting thing. And I know Casey's super excited. He loves to point out our mulch is here.
I think going into Costco and see where we do all the Costco's in Michigan.
Whoa.
It's pretty cool. And being at the Detroit Zoo, so we do all their exhibits and garden beds. That's probably my favorite account.
I love Costco and the zoo. It's so fun.
Without your service, what happened to the tree waste? Would it just sit and eventually decay? Or, I'm seeing a real sort of cleanup and channeling it into enrichment of the biosphere. But what happened without you guys?
Yeah, everything prior to about 7 years ago, everything went to landfills. It has an adverse effect when you don't process this stuff, because the methane gases, like if you ever see in the landfills, they have the fire, usually, of the flames coming up out of the top of the landfills. That's burning the methane gas. It's better to repurpose it and put it back into the soil.
Absolutely.
And right now, we're the only tree disposal center in Detroit, at least our size. So we feel really good about providing that service to the people who really need it, so they don't have to drive too far out of the city, especially when they're on jobs and it might take a couple of rounds coming back to us.
For people in cities who are not aware of a company like yours, is that usually the case? Like trees that get cut down and taken away go to the landfill?
It varied by municipality.
Yeah. For folks listening who are excited about what you're doing, they don't live in Detroit, what words do you have for someone living in a city that they haven't found a company like yours?
I would say that they may want to research to find out where their mulch is coming from. Sometimes a lot of companies sell mulch, but they don't make it. They might get it from other places, so you're getting it third party, which isn't the worst thing. The mulch might be made from pellets or something that you really don't know what was on it. And like Mary asked about earlier, it has the higher potential for chemicals and other things. So I think the biggest thing would be find out wherever you're getting your mulch, how is it made? Who made it? Did you make it? And where is it coming from? And also, depending on how close they are to Detroit, we do deliver.
Oh, cool. What's your delivery radius?
We do 100 miles.
Cool.
100 miles.
We do a minimum of 80 yards. That sounds like what Mary
Yeah.
was
Like a
getting
whole
trying to figure out. A whole wood.
Back to the landfill. I'm contemplating how huge that is. You see images of these areas affected so drastically from recent hurricanes. I look at those films and I think, what happens to all of that? All those downed trees and branches, they're just everywhere. I never thought about it going into the landfill, but what else would they do? Leave it there, send it to the landfill, or someone like you collecting it and turning it into mulch. I imagine in these areas, certain municipalities are utilizing that aspect of disposal more, just as a way of getting it out of the way.
What blew me away the most was we look at trees and they're beautiful, but when they cut down the trees and they bring them to us, how much would you say the tree trunk that fits in a typical trailer raise?
Put 2,000 pounds.
Yeah, so it's heavy.
Yeah.
The most, like you said, with storms and everything else, wherever they're taking it, they have to do something with it. Otherwise, how are you going to move it? There's so many things logistically.
Wow. Something we don't think about a lot, isn't it? And also, you think about if left in place, especially in waterways, it collects trash and stuff that causes health problems and certainly doesn't look good.
Yeah, it can. And the program that Detroit has, I think it's really good for things like that, because with the trees that might just accumulate in an empty lot, they become a place where people grow trash or animals are living under, and it's not good for the neighborhood. It's all around bad, so it can cause a lot of negative effects.
Shifting a little bit, do you guys advise people on how to use it? Do you take a step further from just delivering it? Do you talk to people about the advantages of it?
A lot of customers want to know, where should I get? Should I get colored mulch? Should I get hardwood mulch? Should I get triple shredded mulch? They have all these questions. Our next question is, where are you going to put it? And what are the goals? If you want something to decompose quickly and provide a lot of nutrients, then that might be triple shredded. If you want that, you're just going to look good and it's going to take a little longer to decompose, then have a color. What color is your house? Show us pictures. So it just kind of depends. But we love when people come with different kind of questions, and they were really interested in adding mulch, but supporting the city of Detroit as well.
Yeah, so talk a little more about the colors. Casey, you were talking about it before a little bit, that are all the colors natural? Sometimes you look at those things and you go, wow, what's in that? Do I want to put that on my yard? I bet a lot of our listeners are curious.
Yes, we buy a more premium color base to make sure they're VLC free. So no real emissions. And well, like Casey said, it's carbon based. And we have natural colors like black, brown, red. My favorite is cherry chocolate, a mix of brown and red. People ask if we have purple or gold. Well, not yet, because our more natural supplier doesn't provide it, but we'd love to have more fun stuff in the future.
Well, all of these colors are compatible with good dirt. You can grow food in it. You don't have to worry about eating plants grown in red mulch. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, that's true. We don't have to worry about our employees inhaling anything toxic because of the natural base.
Okay. I think you told us before, but I'm curious how you get that red mulch color.
Yep. So they're all different shades of carbon.
Well, I bet there's a lot of people that'd be glad to hear that.
It's not painted, it's
carbon infused. And so we have dye and water, put it in a tumbler-like machine with the mulch, and it spits out the finished product.
Okay. So we know mulch is really important for restoring our planet's topsoil. What you do is a real service, a healing service to the environment. Good soil is the foundation of life. In my experience, sometimes I need
topsoil. Do you guys do topsoil? Do you keep a supply that becomes soil over the years so you can deliver it to people? Because I would love to know a source I can trust for getting topsoil. It's almost like it's rare. You can order topsoil from any landscaping place, but believe me, I have tried. They will not tell you where it comes from. They'll say they don't know. I don't like that answer.
So there's so many different types of topsoil. So you really want to make sure that, clay can be a topsoil, but clay is not good for growing plant life. It's great for compaction. Like if you're on a roadside ditch, and that would be great for that. If you're looking for topsoil, you really want a compost based topsoil.
What's the difference between compost and topsoil?
So compost doesn't have enough sand to create the compaction test for topsoil. So you can take straight compost and add sand to that, and then you would have classified topsoil.
Wow. Thank you. That's really big for me to know. You know why? I have tons of compost because we compost all our food. We have an enormous pile of compost out there. But if I just plant in my compost, it doesn't have enough structure to support a growing plant. When it gets big enough, it'll fall over. So all I have to add to that is sand, and I have topsoil. Wow. I really did not know that. That's super valuable. That's another thing I was going to ask. Besides composting trees, do you have any other kind of compost products on hand or advice to help people with their compost? We do the same with yard waste and leaves. We turn those into compost.
Compost is like a book that never ends. We're learning more as time goes. COVID took the compost industry to a different height than what it was before, because more people got into gardening, started seeing the benefits of composting, and really in our business, we've seen a growth year and year. So as the knowledge of composting grows, so as our business grows too.
Wow, that's interesting. So the success of your business is enhanced by people understanding the value of it and what's happening. So
yes. Your highest source of nitrogen, which was like a steroid for plants, would actually come from food waste. We currently don't do any food waste because we just don't have the space to be able to do it. But adding food scraps to your compost pile is a quick way to decompose it faster and have a better compost.
So Emma, tell them about the food compost program in DC where you live.
Yeah, they just started. They're technically still in the pilot portion of the program. A few cities I know that have an established compost program, but it is a curbside compost pickup where they give you a bucket, and we have like a countertop bucket that's separate, and they gave us bags. So you just collect your compost waste, kitchen compost, and they accept meat, dairy, everything. They really take it all, put it out at your curb. It's not the same day as trash pickup, but it works like trash pickup. They take it, and at the end of the season, give everyone a 5-pound bag of compost. Yeah.
Wow.
Cool.
That's huge.
I know. Not the same, but in Montgomery County, where my parents live, if you get your leaves, you can correct me, Mom. Isn't there a compost where they take the leaves and you can get the leaf compost back? But I think you have to buy it. I don't think they bring it to you.
Out here in the county, they collect leaves in the fall. You know, people collect and put them out, and they make a product that they sell, and it's really a beautiful product. It's really wonderful for the garden, and it's made all out of the leaves, which I love because it bothers me that people would rake up their leaves and put them in plastic bags and put them out to the trash so that those go to the landfill. I think there's a real misallocation of resources.
That's a good way to put it.
Yes, the leaves off the trees are an incredibly rich source of nutrients for our soil and the good dirt, and we need to heal our soil. I don't think any leaf should go to the landfill, particularly in plastic bags.
Man, the biggest problem, if people could learn not to mix their trash with the compost, you will be so surprised and how much trash comes in with those compost bins.
Oh, you mean people just yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about, especially at public events and parks.
Even in the brown leaf bags, people roll up and put it into those
Yeah.
dry. The most popular one we see is shoes. I always wonder, did you just want to throw them away? You work so hard
Wow. Right.
bagging in them, but we get shoes with the leaves. So it's a process to make sure that doesn't get cleaned in the
Maybe it's
compost.
just a big misnomer that they have yard waste because people think of waste as trash. So maybe we could work on a different name for it so people didn't think about it like trash.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be helpful for sure.
In the plastic that comes in the mulch
Yeah.
bag, they'll rake up their yard and then put empty
Right in
bags
there.
in with the compost. And then it comes back and you got to sort it all out.
Wow. So you guys have to
Yeah.
sort through the yard waste.
Here.
Gosh. How do you do that?
Manually?
It's like a vacuum
Okay.
system. We run it through a tumbler and the plastic that will float, it tucks into a vacuum and it goes into a dumpster. And then the trash bags will go to a landfill.
And-
it's an extensive process to separate it.
Did you say it was a vacuum thing?
Like a tumbler.
And so there's like a kind of like a filtering system so that the compost can get through, but the other stuff is left behind, right? Got it. I wish there was some kind of educational outlet to let people know the value of composting their yard waste and leaves and how to keep it more streamlined. If you didn't have that to do that big screening process of everything, you can have so much more product. So
Yes.
And
Go ahead.
if we didn't have it, it would affect the quality of our compost.
So when you turn around, you collect the yard waste, process it, and get all this stuff out. How do you sell the compost? The same way you do the mulch. People order it in truckloads and square yards.
Yeah.
Do you put it in bags and sell it anywhere?
No, we don't bag it.
Yay!
We have a loader that puts it in the back of a pickup or a trailer, depending on what they have. Yeah, so it's really for people who have space in the vehicle and to pick it up or rent it and get to work.
I think that's the better way, because if you've ordered 40 bags of compost for your garden, then you have 40 plastic bags to do something with, and it seems counterproductive, doesn't it?
It's so much more expensive to buy it in the
Yes.
bags because the bags cost so much.
Oh, yeah.
And then you have to pay a bagging company to bag it, to label it, instead of just going to your local garden center and buy it in bulk.
Y'all, they have commercials to
How do you get the word out?
explain these things to people. You can get compost without plastic for cheaper from us.
But I think when people see 2 for $10 mulch
Uh-huh.
bags, they get that construed with $30 a yard.
Oh, wow.
$30 a yard is so much more than 2 for $10 for a bag.
Oh, yeah. A square yard is a small pickup truck full in the back. That's about a square yard, right?
Yes.
I know this from experience at this place where I buy it in bulk. It's about a scoop. The big machine they have, I can't explain how big the machine is, but it has a giant shovel on it. It's like one big scoop. That's what I get. That's a square yard. Way more than 2 bags from Home Depot. And that
Yeah,
cost
me-
me $30.
The yard is about 15 bags.
I don't even know.
Wow.
So if you were going to do just volume, it's about 3 times more expensive to buy it by the bag than by bulk.
I know that you've listened to at least one other Good Dirt episode, so you might be anticipating this question, but we take to talk a lot about slow living, and recycling and composting and all these things are very in line with slow living, as is gardening, of course. So, and this doesn't have to be related to mulch or your work per se, but we're interested to hear from both of you about how you are able to embrace slow living in your everyday life, or what slow living means to you?
I would say I think slow living means being more intentional, especially with our relationships. So, being more mindful, enjoying it, being just one on one, like we are right now with you, Emma and Mary, and learning from each other, asking questions, and that to me is slow living, enjoying our relationships, and instead of multitasking, which is so easy to do. And so we try to incorporate that with our customers, our employees, and everyone else, just being more intentional and developing those relationships more deeply.
Thank you.
Oh, I love that. What about you, Casey?
I wouldn't say in simple terms, give more than you receive.
Oh, I love that too. That's great.
Something I
Because what ends up happening is you end up receiving so much too when you have that sort of outlook.
Oh, and it attract, like when you add that mind to it, it really attracts so many good people in your life.
That leads us into the next question that we always ask, which probably seems really redundant to you guys because of what you do, but we're going to ask it anyway. What does the good dirt mean to you? Love to hear from both of you on that. And you can answer that literally about good dirt or metaphorically.
So good dirt to me is really the sustainability of our food and our lifestyle. We're not making any more dirt, but we're definitely taking away
Yeah.
more. Our soil has to produce more than what it did 10 years ago. It's going to have to produce more 10 years down the road than it does today.
Yes.
And I would say to me, when I think about our leaves that, like we said, we collect those brown bags that are at the end of the street that I know when I was younger, we would work as a family to combine all the leaves and pack them up and fold them down, and would be like a family activity. And then you put them at the end of the street, and that's it. We're done with that. Now it's winter, even where we are in the fall. But when I think about good dirt, I feel like that's like the beginning of our process. That's where we take them in and we get it processed and we create something that people are buying and bringing back into their homes. And it's like each set of compost is like a neighborhood. So we're mixing it all in from Detroit. So it's kind of special having that compost. It's like Detroit's own compost from our own leaves, our own families, and our own backyard. So that's what good dirt is to me. It's just like a culmination of neighborhoods and everything else.
Oh, I love that
That's
so much.
special.
Yeah.
I love that.
I love that. And I want to add to that, we talk so much about putting circularity back into our lifestyle in terms of our, consumerism and our relationship with our food, our clothing, and the things we use every day. And what you just said made me think, really bringing the circularity back into our immediate environment, the trees and the leaves and things, and when their use is over for this season, the season of the tree's life or the season of the leaves, it's not a linear thing like they're just gone, like you said. They can circle back around and become and enrich our current life moving forward, and our soil and our good dirt. And we're such good dirt nerds over here. That's why we have this podcast called The Good Dirt.
Yeah, no, and it's really special. I love what you all are doing. It reminds me of we have this nonprofit organization in Detroit called the Greening of Detroit, and they plant trees in Detroit. When we work with them, they get mulch from us, get compost from us. They use our compost and our mulch to plant a tree where, and a lot where that could benefit from trees. And then when the leaves fall, then the leaves come to us and we make compost and then plant another tree. It's just so special how all intertwined we are.
It is. It's just
absolutely beautiful. The circularity of it, I love. What is it that you most want to leave with the audience? Or what would you most like the audience to understand about what you do?
You have the mulching and composting benefits. So when you really think about a leaf falling, naturally it would decompose and fertilize the top part of the soil, which is where your grass and plant life is. And over the winter, the fertilizer that it didn't use would leach down, and the tree actually brings that back up and drops it. Well, when we take the leaves and the grass clippings off of that soil, the grass isn't getting fertilized, and the top part of the soil is getting deplenished. So adding that back is really important for our grass to not turn brown in the fall or in the heat of the summer. So when you look at your yard, if you compost or just spread a little thin layer of compost back onto your grass over a couple of years period, you wouldn't even have to water your grass every day. You may have water once a week, depending on your heat and things like that. But just the benefits of it, you'll see drastic changes in your health of your plants and your grass.
Wow.
And I would say I would like people to walk away and to think of Detroit Mulch not just as a business, but as a service, and a service for our community, because we all have had at some point probably a tree that has fallen, whether it's a storm or it needs to be cut. And like we discussed, the tree has to go somewhere. It benefits us all. And with the production of mulch after that, it really is a full circle. So it's a service that we're inspired by, we're passionate about, and we're just happy to be a part of the Detroit community and share it.
That's wonderful. I really, really appreciate this conversation and y'all's time and just your ability to shed light on a topic that might seem sort of ordinary, like garden mulch or making garden mulch, but it's really rich, literally and metaphorically.
Yeah, there's a lot there. So lovely to meet you both. And I hope, again, anyone listening who doesn't live in Detroit, I hope this inspires you to find a local mulch company or maybe start one yourself like you did. There's a need for that because certainly every city needs something like this. Every municipality.
There is a lot there. So really, thank you for your time today. I've enjoyed this so much. And
Thank you. Thank you both. It's been wonderful talking to you.
I've gotten some really good tips.
Had a great time.
Thank you for tuning in, calling in, and spreading the good dirt. We love hearing from you. You can reach our listener voicemail at 443-459-1950. That's 443-459-1950. You can find this number in our show notes and in our Instagram profile.
This show is produced by Lady Farmer, a slow living lifestyle community, and the original music is composed and performed by John Kingsley.
For more from Lady Farmer, follow us on Instagram at WeAreLadyFarmer. That's We Are Lady Farmer. Or join us online at www.ladyfarmer.com. We'll see you next time on The Good Dirt.
Goodbye.